So how do you join your cabinetry? This video will take you step by step through a couple different methods that we use here in the SedgeTool shop. So I was in the midst of putting together the cabinets for the uppers for the laundry room build. And I was working off of these two different views. And I thought, wow, how am I going to join this frameless cabinet so that front edge aligns perfectly? Well, there's two different methods I've used, and I want to step you step by step through each method. So as I put these cabinets together, the two methods I'm going to use are an 18 gauge narrow crown stapler and screws. The other method is with a domino joiner and screws. I don't use any glue because I'm using pre-finished and glue doesn't really stick to it. So there's pros and cons to each system. So I'm going to step you through each one. So the first method I'm going to use is an 18 gauge crown staple. Now, it's a quarter crown staple. That is the measurement here from one leg to the other leg, quarter crown, and the thickness of the staple wire is 18 gauge. So I'm using a 30 millimeter long leg or 1.25 inches, and into the joint you'll see there's plenty of holding power. Okay, so I have all my pieces and parts cut, and sometimes you have stacks of these. I have my bottoms and my tops and my sides. Now, with a crown stapler, it's a one-time setup, okay? You don't have to do joinery and then do assembly. We're putting it together right away before we put screws in there. So, remember what I said earlier. The number one thing is making sure on your edge banding on the front, it's all lined up perfectly. So now I have these two pieces that are kind of in flux, and I got to hold them at a right angle. And you got to be very careful with this, okay? And I'll suggest, and I'll show you in the B-roll in a few minutes, that when you do this, make sure you have that bench of yours set right. I've lowered my STM, so I'm not up here trying to nail it. Make sure you're in a comfortable position. But here's where it starts to get a little weary when this piece here, as I'm holding it, starts to move. So you gotta, how do you say, get your chops on this, and it comes with experience. And you gotta make sure everything is right there. And there you go, it's already pinned. So what I'll do is I'll put a couple more in here. I want to take a couple of seconds here. Okay, you're going to notice that my hand was in close proximity. I've done this for a while. You're going to see where I placed it. Yes, I've done this a few times. It's pretty daggone close to the center. Okay, that edge banding is in perfect alignment, and down here, it's a perfect butt joint. But over here, if you come down here, see this? To put the next pin in, what I want to do is make sure that is staying there, and then I come over and I hit it again. Okay, and then I'll hit one in the center. Okay, and you'll feel it, that's pretty daggone rigid. So I got this joint here, and now I'm going to put this joint here. Now sometimes this can be a little awkward because you're in a different orientation and you have this wobble here. Let me show you an alternative. So I call this a little bit of an extra hand, but once again, I'm up high. I like working in assembling in a lower platform. But if you have an MFT, you may have these TDS-13s, right angles. I just created a right angle. So this will make it a little less awkward. So if I'm pinning like this, I could take this in, put it right up against there, and shoot. Make sure your fingers aren't in the way. The other nice thing about this is I can bring it right in at a perfect right angle. So one of the things to remember is the front edge here, this edge banding, you always got to be, how do you say, protective of it. So when you're shifting it, make sure you're not shifting it a lot on that front edge. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the back. So here's another quick tip. I mentioned it earlier. If you're not used to using a nail gun and you're not good at eyeballing it, it comes with time. But here, this will take a few extra seconds to do, and it'll help you so you don't have any blowout. We use an 18mm plywood. Let's do a little metric. What's half of 18? It's 9. So I'm going to do a quick 9mm layout line to center my crown stapler. So now I'm going to pin my side to the bottom, and always making sure, you're always making sure that that is in line. There's my center line, and I'm going to shoot it, making sure my fingers are not in the way of potential blow through. So I made a quick mistake on purpose to show you a little tip here. Now, when you look at the crown staple, I just pulled one apart. There's a little flex in these legs over the 1.25 inches we're shooting in. So I moved the board ever so slightly, and you'll see that there's an offset from that front edge. Before I pin the other two, I'll show you the fix. I call this the cabinet maker's best friend. So I don't take the dead blow hammer and hit here. I do hit here, but I take a block of wood and I bring it into alignment. So once it's back in alignment, super simple. I just fire another couple staples and I'm ready to screw. So over the years, I have been using these screws. They're made by Quick Screws. I've done a video on them, all right, where they're self-tapping and self-countersinking, so I don't have to drill a pilot hole. They have saved me a boatload of time over the years. But just recently, a month ago, Quick Screws sent me these. They're called funnel heads. They list them out as new. They're 1.75 inches. They have, I believe it's called a number 17 self-tapping tip. Okay, they got a really cool spiral here, a spiral here. They're self-countersinking, but what's really important is they got this little flat. I have been using them a couple of weeks now, and oh my goodness gracious, do they pull a cabinet together, and you'll see right now. So these funnel heads are only available in square drive, but that's okay. I always use a good impact, and I use 2 at each joint. And you're gonna see how that countersinks just below the surface. It really pulls that joint in tight. And also, in using these, I should mention, these pull in a lot quicker, and that point self-drills even better. Absolutely perfect. So one of the things I want to mention about self-tapping, self-countersinking screws, it's all about time savings. Instead of a step with what I used to use an air drill, the pilot hole, and also to countersink, because you don't want your material to mushroom out. Now it's just one step. And these screws are a real pleasure to use. So the next step is really simple. If you want to know how to build this cabinet, it was one of our #1 SedgeTool videos, or one of them. It's in the top 5, how to build an upper cabinet. We'll have that in the description. But remember I said the one thing is the alignment of the front edge, but it's also in assembly, is to make sure your surface is clean, because now I'm going to put in the nailers or the spanners, and I want to protect that front edge. So don't move it around too much, and it's pretty simple. Here is the nailer. It fits perfectly. It doesn't push out. And I have another one down here. And it's just pretty simple. I'm just going to take my quick screws, throw them up here with my impact, and I'm just going to put that in. I don't need to use a crown staple, and just drill it right in. And I just put on each nailer 2 screws, and that's it. So when we do the butt joint of the cabinetry, this is the second method, it's all about labeling your material properly. In other words, once you get going with this, it takes about 12 seconds per joint. And is it worth it? You will see. We got plenty of videos on this, but what I want to do is this is the outside of my bottom, and here is my side. What we want is a perfectly flush joint, and this is my front edge to front edge. It's really simple. This doesn't have to be accurate. It's just a simple line that I know the plate of my domino joiner is going to go up against here and up against here. So I'm going to go through some quick labeling. On the outside of my tops and bottoms, I'm just going to put a big H, okay, just like this. And if I have a stack of them, I don't have to worry about them anymore. So on the side, I'm going to put V on all my sides, because that means in my head, I'm going to plunge the domino vertically. So after I do all my labeling, and what if I have 10 cabinets to put together? This goes so quick now because I don't really have to think about it. I have everything ready to go. I'm using a 5x30 domino. I got my cutter in there. I'm going to plunge equally into each piece. I'll set my depth here at 15. I have my TSO Bigfoot on here. That helps when I plunge vertically. You'll see in a minute. I double check everything. And from the front edge, and this is the most important part of this process, every front edge, I will have it in the tight position. So I'm going to use the precision of the machine, and because I'm in the tight position from that front edge, remember it's all about the alignment of it, I'm going to use the flap, which brings me in 37 millimeters. So I'm going to take it in, bring it in, and start it. I have it in a loose setting now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the edge of the plate, okay, right there, because I have it in a loose. I don't have to put marks. I'm going to turn it on, and that'll bring me in about 66, 67 millimeters in from the back edge. So now I'm going to plunge vertically. I like this handle here on the TSO Bigfoot. It gives me great stability. Also, front edge, I bring my flap in, and to turn it on, here's a great tip for you. Don't go like this. Okay, because sometimes that'll actually plunge into your material. Take it and pinch it on like this. So the beauty of going from that front edge with the flap, the precision of the machine, and using a domino, okay, it automatically registers that front edge. So we did this one tight, as I showed you, and this one loose because it'll help with assembly. But we still have glue line. If we want to use glue, I just use them to align it. So let's put this together. I always put it in the tight to tight first to get that in there. And you'll see, look at that edge right there. That aligns it absolutely perfect. No wobble. So if we labeled this all correctly, which we did, you'll remember that that'll come in perfectly there with no wobble, and that it makes a perfect flush butt joint. So I got my back in now, in the groove, everything's lined up, we just gotta put the top piece on. Remember, the beauty of this is that tight setting that aligns everything, but you just gotta be patient. Don't pound it when you have it on there. So align those front ones first, and it'll find its equilibrium. And same thing, I just put a couple of funnel head screws in there and I'm good to go. So the reason I like this, even if I just used one tight domino on this front edge, think about it. There's no wobbling. There's the front edge aligns, it's a perfect butt joint. It's not a balancing act. It's the same process. It's just we used a different type of joinery, same assembly. So I'm gonna put in the two back nailers with a couple of screws right here. So let's recap real quick. What are the costs involved? Well, you have a domino joiner, dominoes for this type of joinery, right? But you have that ease of alignment, perfect butt joints, and perfect front edges without gaining the skill of balancing your material when joining. Then you have the crown stapler, right? Low cost, Well, calculate the cost of the stapler, but you also have to have a compressor. You have to have air dryers, filters, so there's in a hose. So there's a little bit more cost involved, but still less expensive. Both methods of joinery are fantastic. They're rock solid cabinets. They'll never come apart with or without glue. One more pro with the Domino. And you know, they're both rock solid, but with the Domino, we could take it apart. In other words, what if we want to finish it, okay, and make sure it's flat, or we have it pre-finished, very important. But also, what if we need to tweak the cabinet? We need to resize it. It's really easy. We don't lose a lot of material in doing so. So there's a lot more, I think, pros using a Domino joiner. You just got to look at that front end cost. I want to make sure I get it all in there in this video. The crown stapler is a lot quicker. You just have the joinery time involved with your Domino on this one. So as we always say from the SedgeTool shop, oh, I gotta have a question for you. So let's keep the question with the video theme. How would you join it? Have you done it with a Domino? Have you done it with a crown staple? Have you done it with another method? Please leave in the comments below your method of cabinet joinery. So as we always say, from the SedgeTool shop, here we go. Be positive, stay sharp, and we mean wicked sharp.